Carlos and Rosie were returning from a pleasant visit to a friend's house. The afternoon had been full of laughter and memories, and now they were heading to Helen's home, eager to share a family dinner. "It will be nice to see Helen and the kids," Rosie commented, smiling as she looked out the window. Night was beginning to fall, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. "Yes," Carlos replied, keeping one hand on the wheel and the other intertwined with Rosie's. "It's always good to spend time with family." The road was quiet, and the sound of the car engine created a calming atmosphere. However, in an instant, everything changed. An oncoming car lost control and slid dangerously toward them. Carlos tried to maneuver to avoid it, but it was too late. The impact was brutal. The sound of twisting metal and shattering glass filled the air. Carlos and Rosie didn't have time to react before darkness enveloped them. The news of the accident quickly reached Helen. She was setting the table for dinner when the phone rang. The police officer on the other end explained the situation with a grave and measured voice. Helen dropped the phone, her world reeling as she received the worst news of her life. The funeral was a somber event. Friends and family gathered to say goodbye to Carlos and Rosie. The sky seemed to weep along with them, rain gently falling on the freshly placed gravestones. Helen, her eyes swollen from crying, stood firm for the sake of the children. She knew her responsibility was now greater than ever. Carla, Michael, and Paula were devastated. Their lives had changed irrevocably, and although they were young, they understood the magnitude of the loss. Helen knelt before them, hugging them with all the strength she could muster. "We will get through this together," she promised, her voice breaking but full of determination. "We are a family, and I won't let anything tear us apart." It took time, but Helen began to adapt to her new reality. She had to be strong not only for her children, but also for Carlos and Rosie's children. The nights were especially difficult. The silence of the house was deafening without Carlos and Rosie's voices filling the space. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Helen worked tirelessly to ensure all the children felt loved and secure. Helen used to sit with the children every night, telling stories and talking about their parents. "They will always be with us, in our hearts and memories," she would say, trying to keep the memory of Carlos and Rosie alive. Helen woke up early, as she did every morning. The alarm hadn't gone off yet, but her body was accustomed to the relentless schedules of a working mother. She slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to make any noise so as not to wake Diego, her youngest son, who was sleeping soundly beside her. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the small kitchen, blending with the fresh morning air coming through the slightly open window. Helen placed the coffee on the table and began preparing breakfast. Some scrambled eggs, toast, and a bit of fruit would suffice for the children. Carla was the first to come down. "Mum, do you need help?" Carla asked, already grabbing a cloth to dry the dishes. "No, honey, thanks." "Finish getting ready for school," Helen responded, looking at her daughter with a mix of pride and concern. Michael and Paula came down almost simultaneously, their voices filling the space with contagious energy. Michael, with his sketchbook under his arm, could barely contain his excitement to show his mother his latest drawing, a detailed and vibrant seascape. "It's wonderful, Michael. You have incredible talent," said Helen, gently stroking her son's head. Paula, on the other hand, was engrossed in a story she had written the night before, eager to read every word to her mother. The noise of the front door opening caught everyone's attention. Lucas entered, visibly exhausted and with a tired look. It was evident that he had spent the night out again, and the air between him and Helen filled with palpable tension. "Out all night again, Lucas?" Helen asked quietly, trying to stay calm. "The children need you here." "Don't start, Helen. "I'm too tired for your reproaches," Lucas replied, not looking at her, heading straight to the bedroom. Helen sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. She knew she couldn't continue like this, but the fear of the unknown paralyzed her. After taking the children to school, she returned home, feeling trapped in a routine that wore her down more each day. In her mind, memories of her brother Carlos resurfaced. Carlos had been her rock, her unconditional support. When he and his wife Rosie aided in that tragic accident, Helen promised to take care of their 2 children, Michael and Paula, as if they were her own. That promise was what kept her strong, what gave her the courage to keep going. Helen took her cleaning supplies and headed to her first job of the day. The house she had to clean belonged to a wealthy family, and the contrast between her life and theirs always caused her a strange feeling, a mix of envy and resignation. But she focused on her work, knowing that every dollar she earned was another step toward a better future for her children. Helen returned home after a long and exhausting day. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky with orange and pink hues. She entered her small apartment with the same daily routine that had accompanied her for years. The silence in the house was palpable, a constant reminder of Lucas's emotional absence. She left her things on the dining table and headed to the couch, longing for a few moments of peace before preparing dinner for the children. Carla and Michael were helping Paula with her homework in the next room, and little Diego was still playing with his toys on the living room floor. Helen collapsed on the couch, letting out a sigh of exhaustion. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to leave the day's stress behind. But her mind couldn't help but wonder where Lucas was. Her husband had left early, and, as usual, had left no trace of his whereabouts. Suddenly, something under the TV stand caught her attention. A corner of paper discreetly poked out. Helen got up and approached, curious and slightly worried. She crouched down and, as she pulled out the photo, felt a knot in her stomach. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid it into the light. The image left her frozen. Lucas was in a bar, hugging a young woman and kissing her with a passion she no longer recognized. The woman, with a playful smile, reciprocated the kiss without reservations. The setting was dark, filled with neon lights and unfamiliar faces, but the betrayal in that image was clear and devastating. Helen stood there, paralyzed, feeling the ground seem to disappear beneath her feet. The pain of the betrayal pierced her like a spear, mixed with anger and sadness. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure, but the tears began to roll down her cheeks. Carla entered the room at that moment, immediately noticing her mother's expression. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked with concern in her voice. Helen tried to hide the photo, but Carla had already seen enough. "What's that?" she insisted, approaching. "It's nothing, Carla. I just need a moment," said Helen, her voice breaking with emotion. She didn't want her children to worry, but she knew she couldn't hide this for long. Carla, with her early maturity, understood that something was very wrong. She approached her mother and hugged her, offering silent comfort that only a child can give in such moments. "We're going to be okay, Mom," Carla whispered. "We always are." Helen appreciated the gesture, though she knew her daughter's words were more hope than certainty. She sat on the couch, still holding the photo, and tried to organize her thoughts. Lucas's betrayal was an open wound, and now she had to decide how to face it. The other children began to notice the tension in the air. Michael, always observant, approached with a worried expression. "What's wrong, Mom?" Helen looked at her children, her heart full of love and concern for them. She knew she had to be strong, not only for herself, but for them as well. "I'm just a little tired, honey," she said, trying to smile. "Everything will be fine." Diego, unaware of the gravity of the situation, continued playing on the floor, his innocent laughter an echo of happier times. Helen watched him, feeling a mix of pain and determination. She couldn't let Lucas's betrayal destroy the stability she had worked so hard to build. After a while, she decided it was time to face reality. She put the photo in a safe place and began to prepare dinner, each movement a silent affirmation of her inner strength. She knew she would have to talk to Lucas, confront him about his infidelity, but for now, her priority was her children. The night passed with a tense normalcy. The children ate dinner and went to bed, unaware of the emotional storm Helen was facing. Meanwhile, she sat at the kitchen table, contemplating the future. The clock struck 2 in the morning, and the house was steeped in an unsettling silence. The children slept, but their sleep was fragile, disturbed by the tensions that were felt in the air. Helen sat in the living room chair, waiting. The front door swung open, and Lucas stumbled in, the smell of alcohol filling the room. Helen watched him with a mix of sadness and determination. The time had come to confront the truth. "Lucas, we need to talk," she said, her voice firm but calm. Lucas looked up with glassy eyes and stared at her with disdain. "Now? Really, Helen? I'm tired and don't want to argue." Helen was not intimidated. "We can't continue like this. I've been patient, I've tried to understand, but I found this today." She showed him the photo of him with the other woman. "Who is she?" Lucas snorted and collapsed onto the couch. "It's none of your business. She's just a friend." "A friend? Is that what you call this?" Helen replied, her voice breaking slightly with contained emotion. "Lucas, we've been together for years. We have a family. We deserve the truth." Lucas got up abruptly, staggering toward her. "What does it matter, Helen? None of this matters. I'm tired of this life. Of you. Of everything." Lucas's voice rose and the noise woke the children. Carla, Michael and Paula appeared at the hallway door, their faces filled with fear and confusion. "Mom, what's going on?" Carla asked, her voice trembling. "Go back to bed, everything is fine," Helen said, trying to stay calm. But the situation was far from fine. Lucas advanced toward her, his hand raised. "Stop lying to them," he shouted, and before Helen could react, he slapped her. Helen felt the blow resonate in her face, but she didn't cry. She looked at Lucas with renewed firmness. "This is over," she said in a low but determined voice. She turned to the children. "Let's pack our things. We're leaving." Lucas let out a sarcastic laugh and headed to his room, ignoring them. "Do what you want," he muttered before slamming the door. Helen went to the children's room, gathering the essentials. Carla, always so mature, helped her mother in silence, while Michael and Paula, still in shock, followed instructions without fully understanding what was happening. Within an hour, they had packed the necessary items into bags. Helen took them to the car, making sure they were all warmly dressed. Carla looked at her mother with concern. "Where are we going, Mum?" "To Uncle Carlos's house," Helen replied, starting the car. "We'll be safe there." The journey was silent, interrupted only by Paula's soft sobs. Michael, hugging his sketchbook, looked out the window, trying to process what had happened. Carla remained calm, but her eyes reflected the same concern Helen felt. They arrived at the small house that once belonged to Carlos and Rosie. Helen opened the door, and a wave of memories hit her. But there was no time for nostalgia. She had to make sure the children were comfortable and safe. "This is temporary," she said, while helping the children settle into their new rooms. "But we will make this place our home for now." The children nodded in silence. They were exhausted and emotionally drained, but their mother's comforting presence gave them a sense of security. That night, while the children slept in their new beds, Helen stayed awake, reflecting on the future. She had made a difficult decision, but she knew it was the right one. Lucas had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. She looked around the house, remembering Carlos and Rosie, and felt surrounded by their love and support. With a deep breath, she decided that, no matter what, she would move forward. Helen lay down on the couch, feeling a mix of relief and fear. Helen woke up at dawn, with the usual city noise beginning to fill the air. The sunlight filtering through the curtains gave her a renewed sense of hope. She knew today would be a crucial day. After leaving Lucas behind, she had to find a new source of income to support her family. After preparing a simple breakfast for the children and making sure everyone was ready for school, she hugged them goodbye and headed out. She walked the familiar sidewalks of her neighborhood, her eyes alert to any sign of available work. It was then that a flyer stuck to a light pole caught her attention. Housekeeper needed. Good pay. Call 555-1234. Helen wrote down the number and, with a knot in her stomach, dialed from her mobile. A kind voice answered on the other end. Good morning. How can I help you? Hello, my name is Helen Martinez. I saw the job ad for a housekeeper and I'm interested. Hello, Helen. My name is Alex Smith. I'm looking for someone to help me around the house. Could you come to the address I'll send you by message so we can talk in person? Sure, Mr. Alex. I'll be there as soon as possible. After hanging up, she received a message with the address. It was a mansion in a wealthy neighborhood of the city. Helen headed there with some apprehension, but also with determination. This could be the opportunity she needed. Upon arrival, she found herself in front of an impressive villa surrounded by well-kept gardens. Alex, a middle-aged man with a warm expression and attentive eyes, greeted her at the door. Helen, thank you for coming. Please come in. Let's talk a bit before I show you the house. They entered a spacious and bright living room, tastefully decorated but without ostentation. Alex invited her to sit down and offered her a coffee. Tell me a bit about yourself, Helen. Helen took a sip of coffee, grateful for the gesture. Well, I've worked as a housekeeper for many years. I need this job to make sure my children have everything they need. Alex nodded, his gaze reflecting genuine understanding. I understand. I'm very sorry for your loss. Here, we highly value honesty and hard work. Would you like to see the house? Helen nodded and followed Alex as he showed her each room. The house was large but cozy, and Alex's presence made it feel less intimidating. As they walked, he talked about his life, how he had dedicated most of his time to his business, leaving little room for personal relationships. That's why I need someone I can trust to keep the house in order. Someone like you who knows what dedication and sacrifice mean. Alex's words resonated with Helen. She felt that for the first time in a long time, someone valued her efforts. At the end of the tour, Alex stopped and said, Helen, I would like you to start tomorrow if that's okay with you. Helen felt relieved and grateful. Sure, Mr. Alex. I'll be here early. Please, call me Alex, he responded with a warm smile. I think we'll get along very well. The following days passed quickly. Helen immersed herself in her new job, finding in it not only a way to support her family, but also a refuge. Alex was always kind and considerate, and his constant presence gave Helen a sense of security she hadn't felt in a long time. Gradually, they began to share more conversations. Alex talked about his travels, his projects, and Helen found herself talking about her dreams and the challenges she faced as a mother. The professional relationship began to transform into a sincere friendship, cemented in mutual trust and respect. "Hello, Helen. My name is Alex Smith. I'm looking for someone to help me around the house. Could you come to the address I'll send you by message so we can talk in person?" "Sure, Mr. Lopez. I'll be there as soon as possible." After hanging up, she received a message with the address. It was a mansion in a wealthy neighborhood of the city. Helen headed there with some apprehension, but also with determination. This could be the opportunity she needed. Upon arrival, she found herself in front of an impressive villa surrounded by well-kept gardens. Alejandro, a middle-aged man with a warm expression and attentive eyes, greeted her at the door. "Helen, thank you for coming. Please come in. Let's talk a bit before I show you the house." They entered a spacious and bright living room, tastefully decorated but without ostentation. Alejandro invited her to sit down and offered her a coffee. "Tell me a bit about yourself, Helen." One day, while sharing a coffee in the kitchen, Alex looked at Helen with a thoughtful expression. "Helen, I've been thinking about something," he began, carefully choosing his words. "Your presence here has made this house a more welcoming place, and I was wondering if you would consider moving in here with your children." Helen looked at him, surprised. "Move in here, all of us?" she asked, trying to process the magnitude of the offer. "Yes," replied Alex, nodding seriously. "I have plenty of space, and I think it would be beneficial for everyone. My drivers can take and bring the children to and from school, and you could focus on your work without worrying so much about transportation and other logistics." Helen was stunned. Alex's proposal was generous and practical, but it also implied a big change. "It's a very generous offer, Alex, but I don't know. I don't want to be a burden." "Helen, you wouldn't be a burden. On the contrary, it would be an honor to have you and your children here. Besides, I would love to spend more time with all of you. I have become very fond of the children," said Alex sincerely. Helen saw the honesty in Alex's eyes and felt a wave of emotion. "I'll think about it," she finally said, moved by his generosity. That night, Helen gathered her children in the small living room of Carlos's apartment. The children looked at her curiously, noticing the seriousness on her face. "Children, I have something important to tell you," Helen began, trying to remain calm. "Alex has offered to let us move into his house. He thinks it would be better for all of us. We would have more space and more amenities, and he has offered to help us with everything." Carla was the first to react, her face lighting up. "Really, Mom? Could we live in that beautiful house?" Michael and Paula were also enthusiastic, though with some questions. "What about our school? Will we have to change?" Michael asked. "No, Alex has said that his drivers will take us to and from school," explained Helen, trying to answer all their concerns. Helen was relieved to see her children's acceptance. "So, do you agree to move?" she asked, wanting to make sure everyone was comfortable with the decision. The children nodded enthusiastically, and Helen felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "Okay then, I'll tell Alex that we accept his offer." The move went smoothly, and soon Helen and her children settled into Alex's spacious home. The children adapted quickly, enjoying the new environment and the amenities it offered. Alex was actively involved in their lives, helping the children with their homework and participating in their daily activities. The house was filled with laughter and lively conversations, creating a family atmosphere they had not felt in a long time. One afternoon, Alex sat with Michael in the library, helping him with a history assignment. "You know a lot about this," Michael commented, admiring Alex's knowledge. "I've read a lot over the years," Alex replied, smiling, "but you're also very smart. I'm sure you'll do well on your test." Meanwhile, Helen and Carla were preparing dinner in the kitchen. "Mum, I like living here," Carla said, chopping vegetables next to her mother. Alex is very kind, and I like the way he treats us. Yes, honey, he's a good person, Helen replied, feeling a warmth in her heart. And I'm grateful for everything he's done for us. Evenings were especially special. After dinner, the family would gather in the living room to read, talk, and share quiet moments. Helen and Alex would often stay up a little later, talking about their dreams and hopes for the future. Helen, I'm happy you're here, Alex confessed one night as they watched the stars from the terrace. I've grown very fond of all of you, and I can't imagine my life without you and the children. Helen looked at him, feeling a deep and sincere connection. We are very grateful too, Alex. You have brought a lot of happiness into our lives. Each day, Alex's house felt more like a real home, full of life and affection. After Helen left, Lucas's life began to fall apart rapidly. His days were filled with nights in bars and lonely dawns, where alcohol and despair were his only companions. Disorder and chaos became the norm for him. His sporadic appearances at work did not go unnoticed, and soon he lost his job. The lack of income exacerbated his situation, plunging him into a downward spiral of misery and resentment. One afternoon, as he wandered aimlessly around the city, something caught his eye. In the distance he saw Helen coming out of a cafe, smiling and talking animatedly with a man Lucas did not immediately recognize. He watched them get into a luxurious car, and a mixture of jealousy and fury washed over him. "Who the hell is that?" Lucas muttered through gritted teeth, his eyes fixed on Alex's figure. Rage and envy boiled inside him, fueling dark and dangerous thoughts. Lucas followed Helen and Alex, watching them from a distance. He saw Alex helping Helen with the children, how they laughed and enjoyed their time together. Every moment of happiness he witnessed only increased his hatred. One night, as he hid in the shadows, Lucas overheard two women talking about Alex's generosity and how he had transformed Helen's life. The words "perfect family" echoed in his mind, twisting inside him like a knife. They don't deserve to be happy while I'm here suffering, Lucas thought, his mind already forming a cruel plan. He decided that the only way to regain some control over his life would be through a desperate act. A week later, Lucas was ready. He had been watching Helen and Alex's movements, waiting for the perfect moment. He knew the children's schedule, knew when and where they might be most vulnerable. The day came when Helen dropped the children off at the park while she and Alex did some shopping. Lucas seized the opportunity. He approached them with a fake smile, feigning interest. "Hi, guys. Remember me?" Lucas said, trying to sound friendly. The children, bewildered but trusting having met Lucas in the past, suspected nothing. "Hi, Dad," Michael replied, though his voice had a tinge of doubt. "What are you doing here?" "Just passing by and thought I'd spend some time with you guys," Lucas lied. "Let's go for a walk, shall we?" Though something inside them told them something was wrong, the familiarity of the father figure convinced them. Lucas took the children to a secluded spot, away from the park and any immediate help. "Where are we going, Dad?" Paula asked, her voice trembling. "We're going for a walk." "Don't worry," Lucas replied, though his tone was increasingly disturbing. Meanwhile, Helen and Alex returned to the park and, not finding the children, panicked. Alex called the police while Helen searched frantically nearby. The tranquility of the day was shattered when Helen received a desperate call from Lucas. "If you want to see your children again, bring the money. Don't try anything stupid," he said, his voice filled with a coldness that chilled Helen. Helen felt the world crumbling around her. "Lucas, please don't hurt them. We'll do what you ask," she pleaded, trying to remain calm while her heart raced. Alex, at her side, tried to calm her, but the tension was palpable. Alex took the phone and, with unwavering firmness, said, "Lucas, we will meet your demands, but if you touch a hair on those children's heads, you'll pay dearly." He hung up the phone and turned to Helen. "We're going to get the kids back, I promise," he said, his voice firm but gentle. Helen nodded, her eyes filled with tears, but determined. "I can't lose them, Alex. They are my life." "You won't," he replied, taking her hands. "We're going to do this together." They called the police and explained the situation. The officer in charge, a man with a stern but understanding look, assured them that they would do everything they could to rescue the children safely. "We have to follow his instructions for now, but don't worry. We're here to help," he said, his voice full of authority. A plan was organized. Alex, with his usual composure, was in charge of preparing the fake money the police had provided. Night fell, and the agreed place for the exchange was an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. The darkness and silence of the place increased the tension. Helen and Alex arrived with the briefcase of money, while the police officers remained hidden, ready to intervene. "Lucas, we're here!" Helen shouted, her voice echoing in the emptiness of the factory. Lucas emerged from the shadows, pushing the children ahead of him. "Good, Helen. Hand over the money and I'll let them go." Alex stepped forward, holding the briefcase. "Here it is. Now, let them go." Lucas looked at the briefcase greedily, but did not release the children. "Money first," he insisted. At that moment, the police intervened. "Stop, police! Let the children go and put your hands up," shouted the officer in charge. Chaos erupted. Lucas, in his desperation, tried to use the children as shields, but the police officers were quick and effective. Within seconds, they disarmed him and took him into custody. Helen ran towards her children, hugging them tightly as tears streamed down her face. "You're safe. You're safe," she repeated, her voice trembling with relief. Lucas was led away by the officers, his face a mixture of fury and defeat. "This is not over," he muttered, but his voice was lost in the distance. In the days that followed, the family slowly recovered from the trauma. Helen's strength and Alex's constant presence were crucial in overcoming the crisis. "We're going to be okay," Helen said one night as they were having dinner together. "We are strong, and we are together." Alex nodded, taking her hand. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." After the storm, calm finally came to Helen and Alex's life. The house was filled with a tranquility they had not known in a long time. The chaotic days were behind them, and a new routine, full of moments of peace and joy, began to take shape. One morning, Helen woke up early, as usual, but this time not with the anxiety of days past, but with a feeling of hope. She got up silently, letting the first rays of sunshine gently illuminate the room. In the kitchen, she started preparing breakfast as the aroma of coffee filled the air. Alex came down shortly after, smiling when he saw her. "Good morning, Helen," he said, approaching to give her a kiss on the cheek. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you," she replied, smiling. "It's amazing how things have changed. I feel calmer." "We deserve it," said Alex, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "We've been through a lot, but now we're together, and that's what matters." The children began to wake up and come down one by one. Carla, always the most responsible, helped set the table. Michael and Paula brought their drawing and writing pads, ready to show their parents the new projects they were working on. Diego, still half asleep, snuggled up on Helen's lap. Dad, can we go to the park after breakfast? Michael asked, his voice full of excitement. Of course, Alex replied, smiling. Today is a good day to spend some time outdoors. After breakfast, the family headed to the nearby park. The sun was shining and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the trees. The children ran to the playground, laughing and enjoying the freedom. Alex and Helen sat on a bench, watching them with satisfaction. In the afternoon, they returned home and began preparing dinner together. It was an activity they all enjoyed, a chance to share and strengthen family bonds. Carla chopped vegetables, Michael and Paula set the table, and Diego busied himself with passing ingredients to Helen and Alex. Mom, can we have pizza tonight? Paula asked, her eyes bright. That sounds like a great idea, Helen replied, smiling. We're going to make the best pizza ever. As they cooked, they talked about their plans for the future. Alex and Helen had decided that after all they had been through, they deserved a fresh start, full of love and hope. I was thinking, Alex began, that we could take a trip together, as a family. Something to celebrate our new life. I'd love that, Helen replied, her eyes filled with excitement. A trip would be perfect for all of us. The children, overhearing the conversation, joined in enthusiastically. Yes, let's go on a trip, Michael exclaimed. I want to see the sea. We can plan it for the next holidays, Alex said, laughing. It will be an unforgettable adventure. After dinner, they sat together in the living room, enjoying a movie. Diego, as always, fell asleep first, curled up in Helen's arms. Carla, Michael, and Paula snuggled up on the couch, feeling safe and loved. Alex looked at Helen, his heart filled with gratitude and love. You know, I never thought I would find such happiness. You and the children have changed my life in a way I can't describe. And you have done the same for us, Helen replied, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. We are a family now, and I can't imagine it any other way. Helen and Alex knew that while life could be unpredictable, as long as they were together, they could overcome anything. Their love and dedication to their children and to each other were the foundation of their strength and happiness. Helen and Alex had been through so much together that they now felt closer than ever. Alex had been planning something special for weeks, and he knew the time was right to propose to Helen. One Sunday afternoon, while the family was enjoying a picnic in the park, Alex took Helen's hand and looked into her eyes. Helen, there's something I want to ask you, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Helen looked at him, surprised but with a smile on her lips. What is it, Alex? Alex knelt in front of her, taking a small box from his pocket. Helen, ever since you came into my life, everything has changed for the better. You and the children have given me a reason to smile every day. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, taking care of you and loving you. Will you marry me? The children, who had been playing nearby, came closer when they heard Alex's words. Carla, Michael, Paula, and Diego watched with expectant eyes. Mum, say yes, Paula whispered, her voice full of emotion. Helen felt tears welling up in her eyes, but they were tears of happiness. Yes, Alex, I will marry you, she replied, her voice firm and full of love. Alex stood up, placing the ring on Helen's finger, before embracing her tightly. The children surrounded them, laughing and celebrating the moment. Days later, Alex and Helen organized a small ceremony to celebrate their engagement and the union of their family. They invited close friends and neighbors who had witnessed the growth of their relationship and the love they shared. The house was filled with laughter and music. The children were running and playing while the adults chatted and toasted to the future. Helen, dressed in a simple but beautiful white dress, couldn't stop smiling. "Alex, this is perfect," Helen said, taking his hand as they watched the guests enjoy the party. "Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me, Helen. This is just the beginning of our life together," Alex replied, kissing her softly on the forehead. During the celebration, Alex stood up to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone for being here today. Helen and I have come a long way to get here, and we couldn't be happier. This party not only celebrates our engagement, but also the union of our families and the promise of a future filled with love and happiness." The guests raised their glasses, toasting the happy couple. Helen looked around, seeing the smiling faces of her friends and neighbors, and felt a deep gratitude for all they had accomplished. When the guests had left and the house was silent, Helen and Alex sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. Helen was silent for a moment, reflecting on her journey. She remembered the dark days with Lucas, the struggle to keep her children safe, and how Alex had entered her life, bringing light and hope with him. "I'm proud of what we've accomplished," she finally said, looking at Alex. "We've built something beautiful together." "And we'll keep building it," Alex replied, smiling. "Every day, every moment will be a new opportunity to create happy memories and strengthen our love." That night, as they got ready for bed, Helen felt a deep peace. She knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with Alex by her side, she was ready to face any challenge. Their love and dedication to their family were unwavering, and with each new day, they were closer to building the future they had always dreamed of. "I love you, Alex," Helen whispered as she snuggled up next to him. "And I love you, Helen," he replied, hugging her tightly. "Forever." And so, with hearts full of love and hope, Helen and Alex closed their eyes, confident that the future held many blessings and happy moments together. This story reminds us that, although life is full of challenges, there is always hope for those who persevere with faith and determination. Remember, as this story teaches us, God always blesses good people. Everything happens for a reason, and even if we don't understand the reasons behind our difficulties, we must trust that happiness will come into our lives if we keep our faith and keep moving forward. The story also shows us the importance of being kind and supportive to those around us. The encouragement and belief made a significant difference. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. That way, you can get notifications of more inspiring and touching stories that will surely move your hearts. Each story I share is a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of hope and faith.